Hello, this is Billy Tarasio with the Modern Divorce Podcast. Today, with I would think one of our most important episodes. It's a topic that is not fun to discuss, but really should be discussed more. So today I am joined by Stacey Honowitz. She is a longtime sex crimes prosecutor in Broward County, currently the supervisor there. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me to discuss these important topics.
Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, this is as heavy as child suicide. It's almost that heavy, but it's something that we need to talk about because when we talk about these things, they become less powerful and less scary, and it can happen less, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like a mantra when I talk to parents. I say it can happen to anyone, by anyone, anywhere, at any time. And most parents have that feeling of, well, it's not going to ever be my kid. And sex crimes really doesn't know any boundaries. It's rich, it's poor, it's Black, white, Jewish, Catholic, fat, thin. I mean, I've prosecuted in my 33 years. I've prosecuted, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so anyone can be a victim and anybody can be a suspect. And that's why I think it's so important for parents to realize this stuff really does go on. It's not just the high profile cases. See, I think that's the issue. We only see the fishbowl ones, the Sandusky, Larry Nassar, the doctor, and then it kind of goes away. But I think people really need to realize that we've got hundreds of cases in our office, and so does every DA's office in the country.
It's a great point, and you have written some books.
Yeah, I did it. I mean, the reality of this situation is that most people don't kind of want to have this discussion. And I always, even when I'm trying to market the books, I tell parents, listen, some people don't like to have these conversations, but you can't be scared. You need to be proactive. I mean, there's nothing wrong when we were growing up. Our parents told us, say no to drugs. I mean, that was a big thing. Say no to drugs. Don't take candy from a stranger. Don't get in a strange car with somebody. All these things. So why is it that now it's so difficult to say, here's your private parts and no one's allowed to touch you there? And if they do, you need to report it. I guess maybe because I'm so indoctrinated in it and it's kind of water cooler talk for me. I'm sorry. It doesn't faze me. I could see how it would faze the average person who doesn't talk about this stuff every day, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it and that you shouldn't do it, because I really think I know it's a big, strong phrase. I think it's parental malpractice if you don't. I really do. I think that if you don't have these kinds of discussions with your kids, then you are really doing them an injustice, because some things they just can't figure out on their own. Evidence of that is Simone Biles, who, after she was abused by Larry Nassar, came out and said, I didn't know it was abuse.
Right.
Well, and so these are the things that we see that we need to really start discussing.
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm excited to get into the nitty gritty because I have 4 kids. They are 6, 9, 15, and 17. So the conversations are going to be very different depending on kids' ages. And even so it's very easy. What you said is, these are your privates. Nobody touches your privates. You let me know if that happened. I think most parents do that, right?
Well, yes, I would say that most do, but there is a number that don't. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the books, because I was seeing parents in my office after the child disclosed maybe to a teacher or to a friend, and the friend's mother called. And I did say to the parents, and a lot of times they would say, no, I didn't, because I don't know how to, not that they were so bad, I don't know how to break the ice. And,
Sure.
And that's really why I wrote these books, because it's not one of those conversations you're like, how was the game today? By the way, I want to tell you something. No one's allowed to touch your private parts. I mean, it's very hard to kind of sashay into the conversation. But, the interesting part is this. When kids are little, we make it a habit when they're at their grandparents or, show grandma where's your eyes, where's your nose, when we're teaching them body parts, where's your mouth, where's your tummy, it's all very cute. If you teach a kid at an early age, that's my vagina or that's my private, it's not funny to them. It's part of the anatomy. That's my penis. That's my, it's only more embarrassing for the adults than it is for the child, because if you learn something that early on, it's not embarrassing. Hey, this is just part of my body. You don't laugh. You don't say that's your vagina. Ha, 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 ha. No one's, you make a part like that's your private part. And how do we know? That's where you wear your underpants. When you're wearing a bathing suit, you cover up your private parts, your, below your waist, above your knees. I mean, all of these things can be kind of taught very early.
Sure. So I completely understand that level of education. I agree with you. That part was easy.
Correct.
Let's say that that's like the foundation.
Okay.
And then let's move up. So once you've taught your kids, this is my body, it's private. I would say there's a lot of opportunities for that to come up. Your kids are naked with each other. Your kids want to go in the bath. They're walking outside. I can think of so many occasions where you can talk about bodies and privates and what do we do in our family and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's the next level up? What do you do then in addition to that to educate your kids?
Well, you tell them that if someone does touch them, if they make them feel uncomfortable, the first thing is to report it. That I mean, what you really need to do is make the child feel comfortable. That's half the battle, because notoriously kids will tell us, when you say to them, why didn't you tell? Not to put them on a bad front, but why didn't you tell? They say, I didn't think anyone would believe me. I felt threatened. It's my father, it's my mother, it's my uncle. I don't want to break up a family. There are so many layers of why somebody wouldn't tell, which is understandable. But we have to tell them, listen, if somebody does, I know that you think you're in trouble, but you're not. All you need to do is to tell me, and someone will help you. You can't say, I'm going to prosecute them. We're going to take them to court. That's a bit strong. That's for us to do. But as somebody, as a parent, you could say, listen, just let me know, because there are ways for us to resolve this. There are ways for us to make sure that it doesn't ever happen again. Because what people don't understand is this: when kids go through this kind of abuse, so horrible abuse, this is something they live with the rest of their lives. I have people that have testified to me that are adults now, and it happened when they were a kid, and I've had to bring them into court for certain things. Maybe it's a repeat. It's a guy that I'm prosecuting now who I've researched and went back and found the people that he abused years before. And let me tell you something, it is a difficult situation. There are those that can come through it, that can block, like anything else, can block it and can move on. But for the majority of the people that are abused, there is always something that will trigger. And how do we know this? We know it because we see it in court. But how does the public know it? Simone Biles, I mean, I keep bringing her up because she is like the example of everything that we try to talk about. She didn't report. She didn't realize it was abuse. And look how many years later it's still affecting her, because when she couldn't perform at the Olympics, when she went through that horrible, she attributed a lot of it to the Larry Nassar situation. It kind of brought her back to being in competition again. And that's why it's so important to tell kids, you need to tell me so that it doesn't affect you later on. I want to be able to get you through it, help you through it, and make sure that in your lifetime, it doesn't affect you. Now we talk at different levels, like you said, little kids versus, your 15-year-old or your 16-year-old. What we see mostly with those cases we see people that want to prey on them. They're at a certain age, and it could be the coach, it could be the neighbor, it could be the person on the computer. I mean, we see so much now of social media predatory behavior. And these kids, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So I was out with friends the other night, and my friend was telling me that her now 16-year-old is in counseling. And in counseling, it has come up that when she was playing Roblox as a 12-year-old, somebody was sending her images, or she was in some sort of a relationship. She had an ongoing communication with someone who was pretending to be a kid who was exposing her to pornography. And now she feels she's 16 and she never told. Her mom saw she was chatting with somebody and then took the iPad, and there was no more access. But apparently this girl who's now 16 felt withdrawal symptoms and actually was very, very affected by what happened to her in her own home without anybody else there. So can you please talk to me about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's really, you just put it in a nutshell. That's exactly the scenario that we see. Kids are dictated now by the computer, by chatting, and all of these people, parents might say to me, well, I know she's not chatting with someone. Or really, how do you know that? Because people go on the computer and they lie about their age, they lie about who they're talking to, because it's so easy. You're behind this screen, no one's watching you. Gone are the days of the pedophile down the street. Oh, we still have them, but now we've got the ones behind the screen that make it very easy. And so what happens is these kids do get involved in these relationships. Lots of times kids that are maybe troubled kids might not troubled kids, but they might say, my mom won't buy me this, my mom won't get me that, my mom won't let me do this. And that is a way for a predator. They know this is how to gain the trust. We call it grooming. That's the big word we use. How to gain the trust of this child, so that the child, because 15, the child will start telling them stuff, will start having conversations with them, will start leading them into their life, letting them know about their life. And sure enough, they start trusting this person because they're speaking to them every day. Going through withdrawals is very normal because they are used to speaking to this person. They think it's a relationship. The person on the other end says, I love you. I want to be with you. Screw your parents. They don't know what they're doing. This is so fabulous. Giving them every tidbit that they want to hear. And so that's why we need to talk to our kids and let them know. And you can't let the kids say, oh, please don't bother me. No. And that's why I say, when there's stuff on TV, when there's newsworthy cases, because we see so many, show them what happened to the girl that was talking to the person on the phone who gave out information. And that's another thing that we see. You've got kids online giving out information. Where do you go to school? Oh, here. Where do you live? Oh, here. What's your address? Oh, here. And so the parents come in and they say, not only was she sexually abused by this person, but now this person knows where we live, where our house is, how to gain access. So you're not just starting with a sex crime, it evolves into all these other situations. So the computer is one of the hugest situations now that we are dealing with, because for some reason, a lot of these girls feel this trustworthiness with people that they're talking to. And it goes on. And people, whenever I interview people, always say, I mean, what do you attribute like this sex crazed world that we're in now? Because we are. You can skim through Instagram and in 4 seconds see the sexy, the bra, the topless, everyone. I mean, listen,
soft porn,
sex sells. We've known this for years, and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah.
Porn is accessible. Anybody can log into anything. So because we're seeing so much of this, we need to kind of rein it in, and we need to educate. That's what we need to do. We need to tell them the bad stuff. When I was growing up, I think I'm considerably older than you. When I was growing up, there was a show called Scared Straight on TV. And what they did was they took juveniles, they took them into the prisons, and they let these prisoners not touch them, of course, but let them know the reality of what can happen. And guess what? It scared them straight. It did. They did the surveys afterwards, and the data came out afterwards about how much to, and I'm not saying to do that, but I'm saying if it means that you have to scare your kids a little bit about what can really happen, then you need to do it. You can't just back off and say, oh, I don't want to freak them out. Well, sometimes you have to, because they don't know what the real consequences are.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. There is. The other thing that I have seen a lot is that predators will ask your children, my children, to send pictures, send images, and then use that to blackmail them. And then I've heard stories about these kids killing themselves. So there's a lot of psychological stuff going on that is connected to sex. And the only way to get through that is to break down that taboo nature of sex.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, it's called sextortion is what you're talking about.
Yes, sextortion.
That's what it is. And what they do is even a boy and a girl are in a relationship that seems normal. Like, right. Your daughter is dating this guy and she decides to send pictures.
Right.
And then when things go bad, he says, unless you ABC, I'm sending out these photos, and it's called sextortion, and it's against the law. And we see so much of it. Do we do stuff about it? Unfortunately, we're so backed up in the court system that kind of takes a the parents come in and they say, oh, I don't want to expose her to court. I don't want to, we need a diversion program for that. We need to let them know. We need to show them, why are you sending photos? Do you know what can happen if you send a photo? And they don't. That's the problem. They don't. So they have to know, guess what? These districts will prosecute you. I go into schools, they call me in because they want me to kind of, be the bad cop, to talk about, here's the statute. That's what needs to be handed out in school. Here's the law. Read the law. Don't look at Instagram. Don't look at this one modeling topless or whatever. You can't do it. When you're 18 and you want to do what you want to do, that's one thing. But listen, people have to know the law. There's transmission of harmful material to minors. There's possession of child pornography. There's producing child pornography. All of these things, all of these sex laws that we have, all kind of feed into one another.
The other situation that comes up a lot in my world is because I'm a family law attorney, there are often allegations of sexual abuse by step siblings occurring in the other parent's house. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, we're unable to prove anything or really find out if it's true or not. What suggestions do you have?
Well, that's interesting because we do, family lawyers are sometimes pulled into these situations because it's not even just the step siblings, but when you have a highly contested custody battle, you might get a mom that says, didn't dad touch you? In an effort to, and all I can say is this, everything has to be investigated. I mean, if there's any allegations, especially in Florida, if there's allegations down here and you're made aware that a minor is being abused, you have a duty to report. And then the investigation goes from there. And what we do is we interview. We do just like you conduct a normal investigation. You meet with the police, you take statements, you hear from witnesses, you hear if there's a backstory, you hear if there's a problem. If the father, let's suppose the stepdad told the stepdaughter, you can't go out on Saturday. And so as a result, what do you think she does? She tells the mom, oh, he's been touching me. So we do see these cases. And, I wish there was just a blanket answer I could give you. Every case has, every facts are different. Every case takes on its own, turns on its own facts and evidence. And we just have to investigate and see. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's not. Are there false allegations? People say to me, listen, that's why I know I'm digressing, but, people always say like, oh, I have to believe every girl that comes forward. I'm here to tell you as a sex crimes prosecutor, there are false allegations. It does happen. There are bad breakups. There are, it went too far and I didn't know how to say anything. So I'm going to say that he raped me. Is it few and far between? Yes. Does it happen? Yes. And in family court situations, lots of times there is so much pressure because of a new marriage or a bad divorce that kids are familiar with this kind of tactic. And you just have to do what anybody else does. Go to the police, let the allegations be investigated fully. And if there's a problem, then there's an arrest made. And if there's not, then the family lawyers, of course, hash it out in front of the family court judge.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I have definitely worked on cases where my client, who was the dad, was completely falsely accused of molesting a child inside a courthouse. I mean,
right. I mean,
those are easy.
Exactly. Those are the easy ones when you're just like when the kid says it happened 422 times. How do you know? Because I wrote it down. Where's your book? I don't have it. I mean, those are the easy ones, but there are the tough ones where it's on the line and so I don't have the family court lawyers. That's for sure.
Well, I have to imagine how a child responds to grooming must predict whether or not they go on to become sexually abused. So how do we, so if a predator is testing boundaries and our children know how to set boundaries, that has to help.
Absolutely. Which is when you say that, which is where the education comes in. See, if you start early and you talk about that stuff, they are aware. Someone will say to me, I mean, I've had situations where a friend will call and say, Stacey, my friend read your book, and she was very much tuned in when the coach from school, she was on like the soccer team, it was a young male coach, asked for her phone number. And she said, well, you can call my parents. And she said, no, I don't want to call your parents. I want to be able, we should be able to have dialogue. And then he continued to call and then said, can I take you out on a set? I could take you to the movies. She was in tune. Because her mom had talked to her about it. They had the book, they educated, they talked about, listen, not every person is a predator. Not everyone wants to do harm, but you have to kind of instill a little common sense in your kids. Sure. Just tell me if something's making you feel uncomfortable, let me know.
Yeah. And, super flattering behavior might be a red flag. And
absolutely.
Then, just keep it in mind while you figure it out. Okay. So tell me the names of the books and where I can get them.
The books are Genius with a Penis, Don't Touch, for little boys. Because you know why? Because you got to get it. It's got to be like kind of in their face.
Should be catchy. I love it.
Well, and the other thing that I wanted to talk about, getting back to that, is, so many times we hear parents give fake names to the body parts. Why are you doing that? You don't have a fake name for your elbow. You don't have a fake name for your eyes. It's called a vagina. It's called a private part. It's called a penis. It's called a private part. No, wee woo, woo woo, ha ha, pee pee, the JJ. I mean, because I've had cases where, somebody will come to me and say, the kid said that so-and-so is touching my pocketbook. And I didn't, what do you mean pocketbook? Well, that's finally, after questioning, what do you mean pocketbook? You don't even have a pocket. Who cares if someone touches your pocketbook? She said, no. And she pointed, my pocketbook. So don't give your kids don't give your private parts fake names. Nothing else is a fake name.
No.
Nothing else is a fake name. So the boy book is Genius with a Penis, Don't Touch. The girl's book is My Privates Are Private. And I wrote another book, The Bully at School is Really Uncool, because I realized in a lot of my cases that bullying kind of tied in with sexual abuse. Like if a girl was being bullied at school and she kind of wanted to be in the in crowd, she was, and some guy said, give me oral sex in the bathroom. She went and did it because she was being bullied. And so I saw that, a lot of these victims would come in and I would say, why would you do, just tell me and she said, well, nobody liked me at school. They made fun of me. I'm overweight, I'm fat. So I thought like it was the right thing to do. If a guy says, send me a picture of your boobs, she went and did it, because she wasn't, it's like anything else. She was being made fun of and she wants to be part of the group.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's heavy duty. It's hard stuff. I know that. It's very hard stuff. I just want people to realize that so much of it goes on. And if you don't believe me, then take a lesson from the elite, very bright, highly educated gymnast who all sat on it for so long and then finally came forward. And one of my cases is what kind of got that ball rolling. It was a gymnastics coach, and he had been switching gyms on and on. And, lots of times kids that are involved in sports, of course, their parents that are at that elite level, the parents want to see them get to the Olympics, do the best that they can. And so when I prosecuted this guy, all the parents came in the courtroom and said horrible things. You're so mean. And what are you doing? And he's the best and blah, blah, blah. P.S. 4 other states, I had girls that he had done it to. He just traveled. Every time he kind of got caught, he traveled from gym to gym. And so a USA Today and the Minneapolis Star was doing a joint investigation on gym coaches, because this was very common in USA Gymnastics. Mm-hmm. And they 6 months, they took all my files and cases, spoke to everybody, did this huge USA Today story that ran for a couple of weeks. And one of the girls who read the story said, well, that's great to talk about the coaches, but what about the doctor? And that's exactly how she talked about Nasser, and they started going back and back and back. And 250 girls said he did it to them. 250 girls that never came forward before, which is sad, really sad.
I don't remember which book this was in, but it was a Malcolm Gladwell book, and it talked about this, and it talked about how parents, moms saw him with a heart on. And just brushed it off. Saw him. He did it in plain sight, but we weren't attuned to thinking that could be a predator.
Correct. And that again goes back saying anybody can be one. And it also goes back to I always say that pedophiles are master manipulators. This guy was on the doctor. I am helping these girls. I am going everywhere they go. They need me 2:00 in the morning for, so he built such a trust with them. And that's twofold. You build the trust, number one, to be able to do it. And then you build the trust so that they don't report you, because you don't want to report me. I'm your doctor. What, are you kidding me? I'm helping you. So there's so much psychological stuff that goes into it. It's so hard to wrap it up and, but my whole mantra is we need to educate and don't be afraid to talk. Just don't be afraid to talk. Have the conversation. And you can even say to your kid, listen, I know it's uncomfortable. That's why I got you this book. I wrote the book because they're in limerick form, because to break the ice. It's so easy. If you're nervous to talk about, give the book. It's Betsy Bootle.
I'm getting the book. Is it on Amazon?
Yeah, everything's on Amazon.
Okay, Genius with a Penis, and the vagina one is what?
My privates are private.
Okay. No, it's hard to rhyme vagina.
Exactly. That's why I didn't
There's
do
no
it.
rhyme for vagina.
And little girls sometimes have a difficult time saying vagina, and it is easier to say private, and then later on teach them your private is your vagina.
Yes. Mine calls it a pagina.
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever.
But look at your age. Wow, you've got quite the span.
Yeah,
Oof.
they're spread out. The other thing that I'm noticing with our culture right now, coming out of Me Too, with an increased kind of awareness of consent, is people are becoming, I think, more aware that consent is more than just, and sexual abuse is more than just he raped me. So Nasser was not raping them. And so, if your idea of sex abuse is only the terrible acts that happen at the end, the most heinous acts, right, that's not good. And now I think we're getting a lot more sensitive to, don't invade my autonomy and my body, which is a good thing.
Correct. And, people have visions, when we bring jurors into the courtroom, we ask them if they've ever been the victim of a crime or filed a police report. And then we say, how many know what robbery is? And they raise their hand, and it's completely wrong, because it's the stuff they see on TV. And that's all they're, CSI, New York, Miami, LA, whatever, all the CSIs. They think they know what the crime is. And that's what people think about rape. They only think of rape as the heinous act, penis in vagina on the side. He with a gun, drags her into an alley, and that's what happens. And then they picture the trial with a woman sitting in the back, or CSI. I found a fiber 28 years ago. The DNA matches under the carpet, in her ear, in her vagina. Listen, that's why we need to educate, to let them know that that's kind of fake. What you think you know about rape, or what rape is called, it's not just what you hear or what you say. Molestation, a touching, an invasion. Lascivious conduct is an adult kissing a stranger on the lips. I mean, will we always now, I'm not saying that every case is prosecutable, because it's not. The evidence isn't always there. We have to have a reasonable likelihood of conviction. But you have to know also that whatever you're seeing on TV is not the reality of what goes on. So Me Too, like you said, bringing it back to what you said, Me Too, I think, has opened our eyes to consent, what's proper, what's not, even in the boardroom or in the office, or someone coming over and rubbing your shoulders. I mean, that's not going to turn into a sex crime, but you're touching me, and I don't want you to touch me.
Yeah.
I didn't consent for you to touch me. Now, if he said to you, can I rub your shoulders? Of course. What does that sometimes lead to? Down to the breast. And then we get involved, because she said, I didn't tell him he could touch me on my boobs, so all of these things are kind of linked in.
But if you can cut it off at the boobs, that's a win.
That's a win. Cut it off.
We're going to be able to prevent, every adverse thing that happens in life. But if we know what it is, we call it out, we stop it, and we process it, we're going to be a heck of a lot better off than, being Simone Biles, one of the most powerful, amazing women in the world, who's understandably in her head and unable to be her best, because she didn't get to process that. She didn't get to cut it off and move on quickly. And
right. And look, that's one of the reasons why that judge, wonderful judge, she allowed all of them to come into the courtroom and speak, because they needed their day. And that's the other thing that I tell parents to listen. You have to remember something. It's so important to tell early, because I, as a prosecutor, I need to have evidence. So if 4 or 5 years goes by and they haven't told anybody, I don't have evidence. If I have, so that's another reason it's so important to tell. I mean, because you'll have a case. I don't want to be able to say to you, I don't have enough evidence to go forward. I believe that it happened. I'm so sorry. I know that probably did, but I just can't take it in front of a jury. So there's so many different facets of sex crimes and sex law and psychologically. And, there's always, I had to tell somebody yesterday, they're going to put you on trial, the victim. And why is that? Because when he came out of the room, she sat on the bed and she stayed, as opposed to just leaving. Now, is she allowed to stay? Yeah, she's allowed to. But what do you think a jury's going to say? Why did you stay? You knew he was drunk. He was already on you. You know what I mean? So all of these things, take a toll. But like I said, if you teach, my books will never prevent sex abuse. I tell parents, don't buy my books in the hopes that it's, God willing, it will never happen to you, and they will be prepared, but it won't stop it. It will make them, it might stop it. I'm not saying that. It might stop it. They might know to say, no, get off me, get away from me. But for the most part, it's always going to help people too that are perpetual victims to know that if someone does make you feel uncomfortable the first time, come and tell and let somebody help you.
I just don't think education can go wrong. Even knowing even if a child is molested, at least if they know I'm being molested, this is not okay. Even that is empowering, and will hopefully, if they then know, they go tell, they know what happened to me is wrong, and I go tell. That I feel like we as humans can handle.
Yeah, because like knowledge is, it's so corny, but knowledge is power. If you have a little bit of knowledge, you feel powerful because now I know what to do with this knowledge. The knowledge is I feel uncomfortable and I'm supposed to report it. I can tell my mom, my teacher, my friend, my guidance counselor, a friend of a friend, and I feel like I did something. I did not keep it a secret.
Yeah. And I will be protected. So maybe I couldn't stop this, but it won't happen again. And hopefully she is at least held accountable, and it prevents that from stopping. So stopping the sexual abuse cycles, every time somebody interrupts the sex abuse cycle, hopefully we're getting safer as a society.
Correct. I mean, unfortunately, I see my cases. I hate to say we've had like a, boatload of cases. I mean, it's just been crazy, but, we've got to attribute some of that to the computer. We do. I mean, kids they're so inundated all day, and they're inundated with sex stuff. You'd be so surprised to know what they know at that age now, the sex acts and what goes on, and they hear about it and they see it. And it's a shame. I'm just trying to do my little part in trying to help people and to try to let them know that this is really important stuff. And I wish a lot of mom groups, I wish a lot of mom blogs and parenting sites, instead of always just talking about the next great play date or where to get things on sale or where you can get the bounce house. You know what? Why don't you say also listen to, this is important. These are tools. I'm not doing that. But they're not New York Times bestseller. What do you think? I'm making money off of these little nothings?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to tell you this is important. And I have to tell you, in the last week, I've been in a couple of Facebook groups and I've gotten some nice response. Prior to that, major parenting sites that you would think.
They don't want to talk about it? Oh, I completely agree with everything you just said. Like, this is a conversation that should be happening. This is something that we should be talking about. And I'm so happy that my friend was willing to tell me about what happened with her daughter at dinner the other night. That she wasn't embarrassed about it, she wasn't ashamed about it. It allowed me to go have a conversation with my 9-year-old about Roblox. Right. And he was like, Mom, this is so stupid. And of course that's never happened to me. But you know what? If he does get an image sent to him, he'll know. It'll be at least I know what to do. At least my mom told me about this.
And people always say to me, like, on what age should I start talking? I said, listen, I'm not a parenting expert. You know your kids. I would never tell you what to do with your kid. I don't like someone telling me with my kid. But you know the maturity level of your kid. When you start talking about the parts of their body, you need to include it. Then they say, well, when should I stop? And I say, never. No. Don't you understand? You never stop. Never. You don't have to sit down everything. Here's our lesson today. That's why I didn't write. I said, why didn't you write a guidebook? I said, write a guidebook. What are you talking about? Like, A, do this. B, no, kids won't learn from that. This is limericks. They could, I'll just read you one so people know.
I love it.
Below my waist, above my knees, is my private part that no one should see. This is a place that no one should touch, even if they say, I love you so much. Sometimes there's people that think it's okay. They will try and put their hands down that way. But you are smart. You know that's not right. Just tell someone and they will help you fight. So it's just a little girl talking about, tell your mom or dad, a neighbor, a friend, whatever you choose, do not pretend. If someone touches you in a bad way, you have every right to stand up and say, don't touch me there. You're breaking the law. I'll tell the police and I'll make a call. And even though I'm young and short, I won't be afraid to tell a judge in court. So, it's just like little tidbits. And kids remember. I always say to parents, I wrote in, you remember your nursery rhymes, this is just not a nursery rhyme, but this is something, hey, wait a second, Betsy Boodle, blah, 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 whatever.
Planting seeds, even if that child doesn't feel like they can say it, they might be thinking about it. They might be telling themselves it. So I think this is wonderful. I think it's important. Anything I can do to get this message out here, I will. Plus, I'm going to order the books.
Oh, fabulous. That's great. I'm happy to hear that. I'm so glad that you really took the initiative because, I know it's hard. Listen, I do a lot of podcasts and I know that it's difficult. I know that, it's not something that your viewers always want to hear, but then I've gotten responses afterwards from parents that, oh my God, thank you so much for not just having the flighty stuff or whatever. Sometimes you got to hit the hard topics and I know it's tough, but I'm so glad that you took the time to talk to me about it.
Absolutely. Listeners, if you have enjoyed this episode, download it, send it to your friends, post about it on Facebook. It's an important episode and every single one of us needs this education, no matter if you're an aunt or a parent or where you're at in life. This is excellent, excellent education. Stacey, I want to thank you for your service. 33 years prosecuting sex crimes. I don't know if people understand just how difficult that would be. And most people can't do that. So thank you for your service, for what you've done, for your books, and thank you for being a guest on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to meet you. And I hope that your listeners enjoyed it. And, if you ever want me back again.
Absolutely.
I'm ready.
Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, like it, leave a review. And if there are topics that you'd like to hear, or if you would like to be a guest on the Modern Divorce Podcast, reach out. We would love to have you. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.